与您分享独处的幸福心理学，不是被迫的孤独与寂寞，而是主动回来做自己，在一个人时，在群众里也能享受独处的幸福。
I look forward to sharing with you the latest research about how pain is created, how we feel pain coming from our brain, the center of where pain is feelings are originated, and how we can work with that to improve our mental, emotional, physical, and social well-being.
相信大家都有这样的一个体验，那就是当你心情好的时候，你看到身边的人事物都是美好的。但是俗话说，人生不如意之事十之八九。所以，当我们遇到不如意的事情时，如何能够稳住心情，才是活出幸福人生的关键哦。那我们应该怎样做到呢？
本次的讲座透过情绪的起伏、梦境以及内外的衝突，带领大家一起寻找并遇见真实的自己。
And I would like to invite you to join me for a free webinar called Thriving During COVID-19, Cultivating Self-Compassion and Developing Resilience, on Sunday, February 23rd from 3 to 4:30 p.m. as part of the Resilience and Wellbeing Summit presented by the University of Tunku Abdul Rahman.
3月8号晚上8点，我将带领一场讲座，叫做“好心情，好幸福”，欢迎大家一起来参与，我们到时见哦。
I'm really looking forward to presenting at the summit. My topic is going to be all about finding balance and cultivating resilience. During this presentation, I'm going to introduce you to this idea that well-being is in fact a skill that can be learned.
个吧，你们知道吗？在马来西亚有一个协会已经默默地为这个群体服务将近30年了，他们就是马来西亚生命线协会。作为一个非营利组织，长期仰赖着赞助者和企业的捐款，不稳定的财务基础已经严重影响了发展规划。因此，生命线协会正在招募950位95爱心使者响应定期捐款，每个月只需要30令吉或者每年365令吉。每位95爱心使者还将受邀参与1分学习3分陪伴的慈善学堂3.0，一起向国外资深心理师学习提升心理健康。现在就加入95爱心使者的行列吧，帮助别人成长自己。
Right, so hello everyone. I hope you can hear me and see me clearly. Good afternoon. On behalf of our organizing committee, I welcome all of you to the Resilience and Wellbeing Summit 2022. Our event will start at 12:30. My name is Karen Ong, and I will be your MC and moderator for the day. While waiting for our event to start, let me to introduce a little bit about our summit. In conjunction with University Tunku Abdul Rahman 20th anniversary of its founding in Malaysia, we are hosting a remarkable and impressive summit, which is the Resilience and Wellbeing Summit 2022, together with our co-host partners, Body Counseling Center and Journey Within. Our dedicated partners include Alliance Ilion, Kaohsiung Medical University Positive Psychology Center, Taiwan Mindfulness Association, Taiwan Association for Caring and Counseling for Loss, Malaysia's Cell-Earn Group Counseling and Support, Lifeline Association Malaysia, Malaysia Mindfulness Association, Tan Siang Mitra Welfare Association Penang, Inner Journey Academy, Roku Films, and Sinchu Daily. The duration of summit is from 20th February to 31st March this year. For the remaining few weeks, we will be covering various topics under the themes of resilience and well-being. As of now, we have covered developing awareness and resilience skills to endure hardship. Now moving next to practicing mindfulness and contentment to increase resilience and more to come. This summit will bring you speakers from around the world, which include mental health specialists, psychiatrists, neuroscientists, psychologists, counselors, and mind training practitioners to provide the insights on mental well-being and strengthening resilience. Due to popular demand, we reopened our registration in Eventbrite. Do encourage your friends and family to register if they would like to have full access to our jam-packed events. Alternatively, feel free to share with your family and friends about our Facebook Live, where this will benefit them as well. Please like our Facebook page for further updates. You can find the link from our chat box. We will begin our session shortly. Please stay with me. Okay. To all the audience today, we truly appreciate you for joining our Finding Relief from Chronic Pain with Mindfulness-Based Pain Management. Just a little housekeeping rules before we get started. You are not allowed to perform unauthorized recording throughout the session. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the Q&A box in your control panel. Your cooperation is highly appreciated. So, other than an MC, I'm also the moderator for today. So let me humbly introduce myself. I'm a registered counselor who is currently serving in Counseling and Guidance Unit, Utah Kampa campus. Also, I'm also glad to be part of the organizing committee for the Resilience and Wellbeing Summit 2022. So finally, the awaited moment, let me introduce to you our speaker of the day, Ms. Patrina Aker. Before jumping into the world of mindfulness, she worked as an environmental engineer in the United States. She did energy engineering with Lockheed Martin and collaborated on research projects with several universities and the National Science Foundation. From engineering to mindfulness, she is a certified mindfulness trainer with UK Breathworks, Mindfulness, and the Mindfulness in School projects. Ms. Patrina moved to snowy Minnesota, USA, to Malaysia 7 years ago. Currently, she serves as the mindfulness specialist at Taylor's University Center for Future Learning. She specializes in mindfulness for stress management and emotional and mental well-being, as well as mindfulness-based pain management. She uses mindfulness to manage her stress, anxiety, and chronic pain. Just a little bit tidbit that I just got to know from Ms. Patrina yesterday. She loved rendang, which I think majority Malaysians love it as well. So now, without further ado, let us pass the time to Ms. Patrina. Yeah, it's your time now.
Hello, everyone. I'm so grateful to see you today. Thank you for joining to talk about one of my favorite topics. I told Karen, this is kind of my passion project, and I changed the title. I would like to talk about how we can flourish with mindfulness-based pain management. So Karen mentioned a little bit about me. I mostly found mindfulness to manage stress and anxiety. But it just so happened that the organization that I trained with is firstly known for mindfulness-based pain management. So the founder has a lot of chronic pain for 35 years, and she discovered all of these ways that mindfulness could help her to improve her life. And I had chronic pain when I was 17 to 19. Doctors didn't understand what was going on, and I knew how hard that is for people. And so I learned about this, and I love these programs, and I love sharing with people. Currently working through my second bout of chronic pain at the moment. And so really excited to share with you guys all of the things that can help us as we navigate these really difficult situations. So unfortunately, I don't have time to tell you about everything today, but I'm just going to pick a few of the most important parts, and then we will explore those together. But I want to start by talking to you about your superpower. Did you know that all of us are time travelers? We have this ability for our mind to be anywhere in the future, anywhere in the past, even though your body is in the present. So now you might be like, I don't know if this is a superpower or if this is a curse. So especially when we're talking about chronic pain, we're in the present, but maybe our mind goes into the future and we worry about things that might happen in the future, if our condition gets worse, if we're not able to find a cure, or maybe we think about the past and how good things were before when our pain was less, or maybe even before it started. So what's the thing that makes the difference between this mind travel being a superpower and being a curse? And for me, the answer is mindfulness. This ability to notice where our attention is and to be able to direct our attention to where it would serve us the best. So when we join a webinar like this, I see so many of you connected. Maybe your body's here, but your mind might still be somewhere else. So I'd like to invite you to just do a short little mindfulness practice so we can bring our minds and our bodies together and direct our attention. So start by just taking some nice deep breaths. You're welcome to leave your eyes open, or you can just allow them to close gently. Just bringing all of your awareness to your breath. And noticing if there's any extra tension in your body. And as you exhale, just really letting go of any tension or tightness in your body that you don't need. And then just asking yourself, what's the most important thing for you right now? Why have you joined this session? What is it that you're hoping to gain or that you want to learn or explore? Taking another few deep breaths as you start to notice sounds around you. You can give yourself a little stretch if you'd like. And when you're ready, bringing yourself back. So if you'd like to share your intention, feel free to drop it in the chat. Let us know why you joined this session today. So let's look a little bit more at chronic pain. So chronic pain is becoming more prevalent as we have countries with aging populations. Also, as we have more and more people who are surviving cancer, and also other conditions that are increasing, such as diabetes and obesity, those can also increase chronic pain rates. So a lot of people have chronic pain in the world. And I'm curious, of our group here, what kind of population we have. So here's what we're going to do. If you have chronic pain, type a number 1 into the chat. If you support people with chronic pain, type number 2. And if you are both, you can type 1 and 2. And if you just want to learn, you can put number 3. Yay! Let's see. Wow, look what we've got. Very cool. So a mix, and a lot of us supporting. I would be 1 and 2. I am both. Mix. Yeah. Great. So we know that chronic pain affects all aspects of our life. So it can affect our relationship quality, our physical health. It's common for people to also have mental health degrading with chronic pain. Things like anxiety, stress, and depression are very common because it's so difficult to live with chronic pain. So it can also affect our ability to work, to be independent, and to have mobility. So people with chronic pain often struggle to actively participate in life while effectively managing their pain and condition. So I want to introduce you to a friend of mine named Chris. So Chris is an MD, and he used to be involved in the Royal Flying Doctor Service of Australia, which I love that name. So he worked with them for a number of years before starting his own private practice. In 2011, he woke up with horrible back pain and left sciatica pain. And he didn't really know why. He had done a bit of gardening the week before. He'd carried a stretcher around at a training at work, had been running on a treadmill, but nothing that really was like, oh, that's why your back hurts so badly. So over time, it didn't improve. So Chris went to back specialists, pain specialists, physiotherapists. He tried injections for pain. He used medications to manage, and it didn't help enough. So he struggled at work, and he started to worry that he may have to stop his practice altogether. And about a year into his chronic pain journey, he did have to stop working. He could no longer sit for such long hours to see patients, and the medications had side effects that made him not able to focus and work. So after he gave up his practice, Chris became more isolated. He struggled with depression and anxiety and wondered what he was going to do. Of course, he worried financially as well, giving up his career. And so luckily, Chris found this mindfulness-based pain management program through an organization called BreathWorks Mindfulness. And BreathWorks Mindfulness teaches an 8-week program that helps people to work through all these different aspects of chronic pain. And Chris now told me that he is flourishing. He still has pain, but he's able to manage it, and he's able to find joy in life despite having pain. And so I want to share some of the things with you today that are key to mindfulness-based pain management and how they can help all of us as well. And even if you're not dealing with chronic pain, these techniques also apply to stress and anxiety so that they can help all of us, because mindfulness can be used for so many different kinds of things. So we'll check in again with Chris throughout the presentation. I'll bring in some more parts of his story for you as well. So I want to start by sharing with you one of my favorite studies about pain because it is so visual. So these are MRI images of the brain. This was a study done by the Wake Forest University School of Medicine. And what they did is they had volunteers come into the lab and they put a small thermal stimulator on the back of their calf. And the subjects reported on both the intensity and the unpleasantness of the pain. So we can think about this like if pain was music, the intensity would be the volume, and the unpleasantness would be like how much you love or hate a certain song. Then they consider them novice meditators because they only gave them 4 20-minute sessions of mindfulness training. And then they repeated the study. They had them again report on the intensity and the unpleasantness, and look at the difference. They felt 40% less in terms of pain intensity, and the unpleasantness was 57% less. And the stimulator is still heated to the same temperature. And we can see from the MRI images that the brain activity also changed. So what happens when we have pain? So imagine something like this. We accidentally bang our finger with a hammer. So sensory neurons are going to respond to that harmful stimuli, and they're going to send pain signals to the brain. So the signals move through the spinal cord up into our brainstem. And then in number 3, you can see that the brainstem activates the brain centers. So this is where sensations, reactions, and emotional responses to pain are created. And then pain can be changed or blocked in the spinal cord. So we call this modulation, pain modulation. And so 3 different things can happen. People can feel more pain than is expected. Sometimes people feel less pain than is normal. Or the brain can change how or where the pain is experienced. So this is one reason why people may feel different levels of pain from each other, and also why we can change how our brain is interpreting pain. So some things that happen generally with chronic pain is we're naturally paying attention to our pain. So we can become really hypervigilant to pain. Evolutionarily, pain is a sign that something is wrong. So naturally, our brain is going to pay a lot of attention to it. But sometimes our brains can misinterpret pain through that modulation process where it's kind of like that volume button gets turned way up and the intensity may become kind of stuck, like we're way turned up. And so all pain is real, but we can feel it in different ways, like in that research study, right? They were able to change the way that their brain was responding to that pain. So what mindfulness can help us do is it can help us to rebuild neural pathways, to actually change how our brain is responding to pain. When we feel pain, often it triggers our sympathetic nervous system, that threat kind of mode. And we can start to strengthen our parasympathetic nervous system so that we can get that balance back. And also, it can help us to change our habitual patterns that might actually be making our pain pain or suffering worse. So for example, Chris, one of the things that he did to manage his pain and his, stress and anxiety is that he would watch movies. But it turns out what Chris learned later is that if he sits for more than 20 minutes, he actually increases his levels of pain. So he didn't notice this before though. Right? He just thought watching movies was a great way to tune out and just get through, insomnia nights and stuff like that. So we can start to look at things like that as well. What am I doing that's making my pain worse? So here's just an overview of some of the things that are found in the research. So mindfulness is an evidence-based approach to dealing with chronic pain that has been tested and proven effective for over 35 years. So some studies find that people don't need to use as much pain medication. They can have reductions in the level of pain that they feel. They also are better able to manage emotions, stress, and anxiety. And they feel more empowered and less hopeless in terms of managing their condition. And the effects also last over time, past just the initial point of time where we teach people some of these skills and tools, they still get benefits. So one literature review where they looked at 18 different studies of mindfulness for chronic pain, over 1,000 people. And all of the studies had significant improvement in things like quality of life, acceptance, pain tolerance, and mood. So 10 out of the 11 studies looked at pain and they found a reduction. And they also found, there's one study that did a follow-up 4 years later, and they found that people were still benefiting. And BreathWorks has even found up to 9-year follow-up that people are still doing well. So let's change gears a little bit because we've been using the word mindfulness a lot, but what does this actually mean? So here's a definition that I really like. So it talks about being able to make choices, right? So that we're able to respond instead of react. All of us have this amazing ability of our brains called autopilot. So have you ever driven home from picking up your kids at school or driving home from work and you were like, whoa, I really need to stop at the store on my way home and pick up something. And you're driving and then all of a sudden you get into your driveway and you're like, God, I totally forgot to go to the store. Has that happened to you? So this is autopilot. And it's actually a really good thing that our brain does this. It helps us to conserve mental energy. We don't have to think so hard when we're doing tasks. But this also can habitualize things like chronic pain or emotional patterns, mental patterns that may make things worse. So mindfulness is about helping us to notice things and to step out of that autopilot so that we are back in the driver's seat. We're back in control of things and we're able to make decisions. And that's really what it's about. So some of the main things that we cover in mindfulness-based pain management, so many different topics. And I'll just pull out a few of my favorites today to talk to you about. And the first one we're going to look at is this difference between pain and suffering. So pain is defined in the dictionary as a highly unpleasant physical sensation. So oftentimes it's caused by injury or illness. Suffering is additional pain that arises from resisting and reacting to pain. So here's a visual way to see this. So if we have pain and we resist the pain, or maybe we worry about it, that can lead to more suffering. Let me give you some examples. We'll keep pulling this apart. So let's go back to Chris. Sunday morning, Chris is like, oh, he feels a tightness, a pull in his back. And so when we have something happen in the body, our mind comes in and is going to make up a story for us. It's going to try to anticipate what might happen. And often it goes into the worst case scenario. So maybe here's some things that Chris might think, or some of us if we have chronic pain, right? Oh no, not this again. Oh gosh, what if I can't go to work tomorrow? Oh, this is really getting unbearable. Oh my God, and the dishes are piling up. My partner's getting fed up with me. What if I end up getting divorced on top of everything else? Oh, everything is falling apart. So we've gone from a pull and discomfort in the back to everything is falling apart. So a little extreme, but I think all of us know that our minds do things like this. It's very, very easy for us to just get spiraling out of control, catastrophizing, and getting freaked out. So what we're going to do is we're going to break this up. So we have the primary experience and then the secondary experience. So the primary experience is the sensations that are happening in the body. So for Chris, it was a tightness in the back and a pulling sensation. Maybe it felt kind of warm, sharp, throbbing, right? All of these kinds of things. So these are the primary experience. And then the secondary experience, which we can also call secondary suffering, is the thoughts, the emotions, the habitual reactions, and resistance that we have to that primary experience. So our goal is to notice that this is happening. Notice that our mind has just gone like 1,000,000 miles an hour and just catastrophizing. And we're going to bring our attention back to what is actually happening in the moment. So here's some common types of secondary suffering that come with chronic pain. So we tend to think about the worst case scenario. What ifs? We may also get stuck in thought loops, right? Overthinking things, going over things again and again. We can have lots of different emotions. Fear and anxiety are very common, of course, because we don't know what's going to happen. And also there's often a feeling of hopelessness. And then other things happen in our body as well. So if you touch something hot, you're immediately going to oh, right? Our body is going to pull away from that painful stimulus. But what if the pain is inside of our own body? So imagine I have back pain. Right? Maybe I'm like, ooh, ow, oh, that really hurts today. Ooh. So you can see I'm tensing, right? I'm like tensing away from that pain, but that's creating more tension in my body. And also we tend to hold our breath when we do that. So then both of those things can also lead to increased fatigue because we might be walking around with lots of extra tension or we're not breathing very well anymore. So what we want to do is we're going to change this cycle. So from pain, reaction, suffering, we're going to change this. So we're going to insert some mindfulness. We talked about how pain can put us into a threat mode, right? Something is dangerous, something is wrong. We can't think very well when we're in that kind of a mental state. But when we put in mindfulness, it gives us more opportunity to make choice. So I've got the word acceptance there. And sometimes people think acceptive is very passive, like just resigning to our fate. And I just want to make sure that we know that that is not the case, because when we have this noticing what's going on, allowing what's happening, we can bring back in other parts of our brain, like our prefrontal cortex, which is going to be able to give us this ability to be able to make choices in what we do. And so like Chris could use, remember, instead of watching those really long movies, which is increasing his back pain because he's sitting for too long, when he notices that, and he's like, wow, my back feels worse after I watch a movie. That's his mindfulness. What can you do about that? So maybe he would decide to use a timer. And every 20 minutes when the timer goes off, he would just stand up for a few minutes. Maybe he needs to move around, and then he can sit back down and continue the movie. And this is going to lead him to have a reduction in his suffering and probably even reducing his pain. But without the mindfulness, he might not notice what's happening. And the same with all those the mind stories as well. If we don't notice that those things are happening, we can't do anything about them. So what the mindfulness program with BreathWorks has found, I want to share with you some of the evaluations before we keep going here, is that the emotional distress goes down a lot. So from these 75 people that did this survey, 1/3 of them had concerning scores at the start of the program. And then at the end, all but one of them had moved into a healthy range. Pain catastrophizing, similar, 1/3 of them had concerning scores and a lot of catastrophizing. And by the end, it had decreased a lot and everybody had a healthy score. So things for pain catastrophizing, they looked at rumination, magnification, and helplessness. Quality of life increased by quite a lot. So this is really the goal of mindfulness pain management, is how can we improve the quality of life? Self-compassion also went up. Before the course, about 50% of people had concerning scores. And by the end, all of them had moved into the healthy range. And they also looked at sleep difficulties. And so there were reductions in staying asleep and waking up too early. Those ones were significant. The difficulty in falling asleep was not significant, but it changed a little bit. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do an experiment. So I would like to invite all of you to put your hand out in front of you and make a tight fist. And as you do this, notice what's happening to your body and your breath. Okay, you can relax your hand for a moment. Go ahead, write in the chat, what happened to your breath as you made that tight fist? You can try it again too if you're not sure. You can do it again, make a really tight fist. What's happening? So I got disrupted, holding the breath, tense breath, short and shallow, holding, yep. So a lot of us experience the same thing. Okay, now let's do it again. Make the tight fist and imagine that your breath is flowing all the way into your fist and into your fingers. And notice what wants to happen with your fist. You can open up your fist. So when you imagine the breath going into your hand, what happened? So we have a mix, holding tighter, feeling relief, slowly breathing but relax. No longer about the discomfort, longer breathing and relax. Yeah. So a lot of the time, people might feel like when they direct the breath into that tension, there's a natural tendency to want to let go, to release. So the fist represents our resistance to things. Maybe it represents the pain, or it could be a constricted emotional or mental state as well. And then when we direct the breath into it, it may want to release. So there's that, we talked about, right, when there's pain, we have that habitual tensing and breath holding that can happen. And so a lot of what we want to do through the mindfulness for pain is to help to get this ability to be aware of our breath and be aware of our body. And then we're able to soften that resistance that we have. No one wants to feel pain. We don't want to feel pain. So it's very natural that we tense against it. It's very unconscious. We don't know. But that's going to make it harder for us to, we'll have like less breath control, and we might increase our pain and definitely our fatigue through that. So let's go back to Chris. Chris once was going to give a training, and he decided that he was going to drive. It's about 300 kilometers from the city that he was living in to where the training was. I believe the training was in Sydney. And when Chris got into the car, shortly after he started to drive, guess what? Sciatica pain. It started going down his left leg. And so Chris used this technique that I just showed you, noticing the pain, breathing into the pain, watching the secondary kind of tension and resistance that was forming. And he was able to breathe through that. Another thing that he did is that he noticed that on his right leg, the feeling of the denim against his leg was actually really nice. It was soft, it was warm. And so he opened his experience so that he had awareness of both of these things. There's pain, there's also something nice going on. And breathing with all of that, letting both of those things be there. He said at the beginning, his pain was at about a 9 out of 10. That pain just shooting down his leg. But with this tool of being able to breathe into the resistance, breathe into the pain, and open his awareness to notice also something nice, he was able to reduce the pain down to a 0 or a 1. Maybe about 15, 30 minutes of breathing, he's guessing. So what Chris was doing was he was playing with this. The primary experience that he was having is that unpleasant sensations of sciatica pain. And then he noticed that he was resisting, which would make more secondary suffering. And he used mindfulness to help him to change this around. So I would like to do a little practice with you guys so we can try this out. I've been talking too much. Let's make this more experiential so that you can try this out and see how it feels for you. If you're not having a lot of pain right now, that's totally fine. Maybe you have some tension or some tightness we can work with. And if not, that's okay. You can also just follow along, breathing, feeling your body, and remembering that there's no expectations when we do a mindfulness practice. Really what we want is just to be aware, to be curious about what we notice, what we experience. And just to be curious. And I like to be playful as well. I think it helps us to be less serious. So to do this, I'm going to invite you to find a comfortable position. And if you want to move, that's the cool thing about a webinar. Right? You can take your phone or your computer wherever you want to go. If you want to sit on the ground, if you want to lie down, going somewhere that's comfortable for you. I love this saying that there's enough pain in the world, we don't need to create more. So for example, if you notice that you're doing something right now that's causing more pain in your body, like sitting in a chair or something, feel free to change. Okay. I am going to twist myself around a little bit because I'm having a bit more pain. Put my leg up on a chair here. There we go, I can still see here. Just allowing yourself to really take the time to get into the right position. You're welcome to lower your gaze or close your eyes. And feeling your body from the top of your head all the way down to your feet. Noticing gravity. Really allowing your weight to sink down into gravity. So often we unconsciously resist gravity. It's another form of tension in our bodies. So just seeing if you can really let gravity support you. And whatever surface is underneath you, giving your weight up to it. Noticing your breath. Noticing how your breath is right now. If it feels shallow or deep. If it's fast or more slow. Does it feel smooth or is it kind of rough or it gets stuck somewhere? And knowing that there's no need to change the breath. Just let it be exactly how it is. And as we're doing this, just noticing what's on your mind. Noticing the thoughts, acknowledging them. Noticing any emotions that are going along with the thoughts. Allowing them to be here as well. Remembering that it's okay to feel however you're feeling right now. That all of our emotions are valid. They're all important. Some of them are pleasant, some of them are unpleasant. But it's okay to feel them all. And if they're overwhelming, you can just bring your attention back to your breath. Feeling how your body is breathing. You can feel the breath from the inside out. Going as deep as you can into the body, noticing how the breath feels. And noticing any thoughts that come in. So remembering our thoughts are like our secondary experience. So when we notice thoughts, just bringing the attention back to the body. Our primary experience could include how our body feels in the chair or on the floor. It could include the feeling of the breath. It could also include any feelings of tightness, tension, or discomfort in the body. Again, just checking if your body is resisting gravity, letting it settle in a bit more. And just noticing if you are having any pain, are you resisting against it? The resistance could be mentally, emotionally, or physically. And maybe for you right now, that's enough, just to notice that there is resistance. You could notice how that resistance feels. And if you feel okay to explore a little bit more, you could get a little closer. And you could use the breath to breathe into any areas in your body that feel tense or tight. Imagining the breath going all the way into those areas, like we did with the fist. And just noticing how it feels. And at any time, if you become uncomfortable, you're welcome to zoom out. You can just become aware of your breath, or you could listen to sounds. There's no need to push. Meeting yourself wherever you are. And if you would like, going in a little bit deeper. If you're feeling tension in the body or any unpleasant sensations, maybe we could see, what does it really feel like? Does it feel warm or cold? Is it sharp or dull? Maybe throbbing or pulsing? What kind of words could we use to describe what we're feeling? And noticing if it moves or if it stays the same. And taking a few deep breaths, letting go of that focus, bringing your attention back to the breath. Noticing sounds that you can hear around you. Noticing if there's anything pleasant in your experience right now. Maybe the temperature of the room that you're in feels comfortable. Or maybe the chair or whatever you're supporting, your weight, maybe that feels nice. Maybe your hands are resting on your lap or the table, and that feels comforting. Or maybe just the feeling of your breath. Maybe that feels good to you. We're just expanding our awareness out, trying to find good things, pleasant things. And it can be something really small. Like for Chris, the feeling of his jeans against his skin. And if there's nothing pleasant going on for you right now, you could also use your imagination. So you could think of things in your life that you're grateful for. Maybe people or pets. Or maybe physical objects. Maybe something funny you saw recently. Your mind knows all the things that are going well. From a mindfulness perspective, as long as you are breathing, there's more right with you than wrong with you. So in a few moments, we'll end this mindfulness experiment. So just taking some more nice deep breaths. Feeling your whole body again, just noticing how your body feels. Maybe it feels different from when we started this practice. Maybe it feels the same in some ways. So just noticing. And then you can gently start to move your body. Especially if there's any movement that would feel nourishing to you. If you want to stretch or maybe even use your hands to massage your neck, your face, your back. And when you're ready, bringing yourself back. Curious how you're feeling right now. So I set up a Mentimeter for us. So you can scan that or you can type in the code. Karen will also drop it in the chat for us, the link. And I'd love to hear how you are. After the Mentimeter, we're also going to take a few questions. So if anything came up for you during that practice that you want to ask about, or anything in general, we'll take a few questions now, and then we'll come back and do some more at the end. Let's see what's going on over there. We've got mostly low energy emotions. You high energy. So remembering that there's no right or wrong way to feel. And this is the cool thing about mindfulness, is that however we feel is totally fine. Some things that we feel are pleasant, we enjoy them, we like them. Some things that we feel are unpleasant. But all of that is okay. You almost fell asleep. Oh. It's okay if we fall asleep too, right? Yeah. I heard another mindfulness teacher who said it's an occupational hazard. People are always falling asleep in his classes. In general, we tend to be very sleep deprived. So it's great if we can find something that helps us to feel more relaxed or more sleepy. Yeah. And maybe we don't feel relaxed. Maybe we feel anxious. Yeah, that's also okay. It's so good to notice what's going on, right? So you can remember before, like I showed you that little thing and it was like something happens. So in the example, it was pain, but it also could be an emotion like anxiety or stress. And then we habitually react to it, which can cause us more suffering or more difficulties. So if we just notice like, wow, I'm feeling anxious, then we can have that positive choice introduced. So we can do something about it if we want. Yeah. Someone wrote the word more. Karen, do we have some questions that are coming in? That we can take?
Yeah, there is indeed some questions coming in. So, well, our 1 hour passed pretty fast. Okay, about 1.5 hours. So that was pretty jam-packed, isn't it? So I especially love the concept regarding intensity of pain as equal of tuning of volume. You know, because as it take away a lot of the helplessness that, you know, that when you are in pain, it can be very helpless, isn't it? So when we look at it this way, it's easier to at least maybe 10% of the anxious and anxiety is a bit like move on, right? Isn't it? So yes. Oh, another concept that I really love is that, you know, because I'm a counselor, so sometimes we have an issue, like when we counsel someone is in pain, it's really hard to really separate the idea of the suffering and pain for them. So there's no clear concept like how do we get in and you know to move on further than actually just let them, you know, so it engrossed in their drowning in their pain itself. So we do have a few questions that is related to the concept of chronic pain. So, but before we go into the how do we encourage the patient with chronic pain, right? So we have one question that is more towards the research that you mentioned before. So our participants want to know, like, what is the example of the items that of rumination in the use in the questionnaires during the research that you mentioned before?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me tell you. The rumination, something like I can't stop thinking about how much it hurts. Right? So like those repeating thought patterns, feeling like we can't control our thoughts. Magnification was another one that was in there. I'm afraid that something serious might happen. So we're kind of making it bigger than it might be. And helplessness, there's nothing I can do to reduce the intensity of my pain. Yeah. So those were the questions that were asked with that survey.
Okay. So moving on. So some of we have a few questions that actually are more towards like if I have chronic pain. One of the question is like the participant said that it's really hard for him or her to calm down and can't get into the body awareness when in pain. I feel really uneasy and irregular in beating in heart. Even feel like want to vomit when trying to do so, and the person have to stop. So the person want to know why it happened like this and what can he or she do to really get into the practice.
Yeah, it sounds like you're having kind of an intense situation in your body. So I would start with kindness to yourself, right? That's okay. That's what your body is doing. A therapist may be able to help you figure out why your body is doing that. From a mindfulness perspective, we can just like allow it to be like that. And we can just be slow, like meet yourself where you are, So maybe if you're able to feel your feet resting on the floor, that could be maybe the first place that you go in getting your awareness into your body. If that doesn't feel good, maybe you could try your hands. So it doesn't always have to be the breath. Sometimes, especially in the university, also students, they can not like that. Or maybe if your heart is beating fast, that might not feel very safe to pay attention to that. So maybe those are ideas. It's hard without having a conversation. I want to talk to you and ask you more about that, because it's hard with just what's been shared by Karen.
So maybe instead of just using breathing, we can use other ways. And of course, talking to a therapist will probably get down to the root on why it looks like anxiety. Yeah. So okay. So the next question is like if the chronic pain and severe pain creating strong anxiety to the patient feel the tightness and unable to relax. As a caretaker or as someone who is near to the person, right? What can we do for him or her?
Yeah, that's a hard one, isn't it? Sometimes I think also we maybe need to distract. If there's a lot of anxiety or a lot of pain, maybe not to try too much at once. So in the program, we actually don't feel into pain until like week 4. So the first week is just teaching people to generally be aware of their body. The second week, we look at thoughts. The third week, we look at the breath. And then only start to maybe explore a little bit into the sensations of pain. Because it is really intense. My sister has back pain and I was like, you should try this mindfulness thing. And she's like, I'm gonna have to feel my pain? No thanks. And I was like, well, but she is doing it actually. She's doing great, but it can be really scary. We don't wanna feel pain. Yeah.
Well, that's human nature, isn't it?
Yes, right? Just make it go away, get rid of it. I don't like it.
Yeah. So as someone that is close to someone with chronic pain, maybe we can take this as baby steps, introducing a little bit. So what is your recommendation? Because we don't want to overly simplify things, like we dismissing their pain or something like that. So we want to have the right angle to go in to help this person.
Yeah, I think empathy is so important when we're helping people with pain. To be gentle to them, be kind to them, and also be kind to ourselves, because it's so hard to support people with pain. And it's really hard as the person with pain as well. So I think maybe helping that person to just be okay. You're having anxiety, and that's okay to have anxiety. You're having pain, that's okay to have pain. And it's not pleasant, and we don't like it. And then maybe if you think it's like very intense situation, to get some help through a counselor or a therapist that could help that person to work through it.
Okay, so because of time issues, I'm just going to ask the last question before we moving on to the next segment. So because just now we mentioned that we take baby steps, with empathy first. So for someone who is actually okay, I'm now having chronic pain. So if I try doing meditation, okay, mindfulness, okay, we're practicing mindfulness on the pain, but it just enhanced my pain. Am I doing something wrong? Oh, this is a question from our participants. Am I doing something?
It's a great question. So sometimes that happens, right? I have someone, she's had chronic pain for 10 years. And she was like, wow, when I open to this, I get overwhelmed by the amount of pain in my head and my spine. And that's right. She's been blocking it out for 10 years, not wanting to feel that pain. And so when she allows herself to feel it, she feels it and it's more intense. And then with time, though, as she learns to breathe into that, and largely what this can do also is change our relationship to the pain. So you remember the secondary suffering? So if we're blocking out the pain or resisting the pain, it can actually create more suffering. And so by changing the relationship to it, going back to Chris, what he told me last week when I called him to get his story for this presentation, he said that pain used to be his enemy. And now he's changed his relationship to his pain. It is now his unwanted friend. But that difference, that shift has really made a difference for him. He does still have pain. He had back surgery and it still didn't improve things. He uses a neurostimulator. He uses pain medications, but he's able to have a good life with this unwanted friend instead of this enemy that's always like lurking in the corner and, looming over him.
Okay. So the reframing of the whole situation actually is also part of the being mindful of what is actually happened to us, isn't it?
Yeah. And then reducing some of that secondary suffering.
Oh, yes. Because we have a few questions on some the mindfulness practices, so just quickly go through it. Okay, so that's a technical thing. Are we exhale or inhale during mindfulness? Are we using nose or mouth? Does it matter anyway?
It doesn't matter. So sometimes we have breathing exercises like pranayama or in a yoga class or something, and then they may give more directions. For mindfulness, I don't usually give directions. You can just notice what's happening. And sometimes we don't even need to change our breath. You can just be aware of like, are you breathing through your nose or your mouth? Because our bodies, they know how to breathe. But we end up like the fist, right? We end up constricting our breath or holding our breath. When I get really stressed at work, when I get busy, I hold my breath. And it's just like, why am I doing that? But when I notice that, oh, I'm not breathing right now, then my body will fix itself. And maybe I don't need to do anything. Or I can make a choice, on a really stressful moment. And I'm like, I am going to take 3 deep breaths right now because I'm just spinning out. So either way is okay.
Okay, so the conclusion here is how we breathe, what the technique is actually not that important, but as long as we are aware that, hey, that's something not right with my breathing, so we can make a conscious, mindful and conscious choice to tune it back. Yeah, okay. So one last question. Okay, so right, because some people are just mentioning that, I really couldn't focus on just breathing, Yeah, so because just now you mentioned that, you see students and you want them to just calm down. Is there any other methods that works, like for people who can't just sit down and just focus on their breathing?
Sure, there's so many different ways to do mindfulness, right? It's just about being aware. So we can be aware of our senses. So sometimes you could do things like listening, being aware of the sense of touch or taste. Sometimes we do mindful eating practices where we'll give, some little thing, and we can bring all of our senses into that experience of eating something. Mindful walking is really great if you're able to walk, or mindful movement, because sometimes our mind it's too much to ask it to like sit still in our body. But maybe if you bring in movement, mindful walking is a really popular one, especially among students, because they're just not used to sitting still, their mind is too running around. So yeah, lots of different ways we can do mindfulness. And so finding what works for you is great.
So there's no one size fits all. We need to find what works for us. Okay, so I know that you still have the last part that you want to share with us. So I just give back. Let me just go back to my corner and I pass back the time to you.
Great, we have so many questions. I'll keep this next part short because more what I would like to do is answer your questions. So I'll just briefly share this with you. That what happens is, like, we've talked about pain for survival, right? So our attention like puts the spotlight on pain. We have this natural hypervigilance towards pain. And we also have what neuroscientists call the negativity bias. And so they say that our brain is really paying attention to the unpleasant things. They say it's like Velcro to the bad stuff. It really sticks in our brain. But the good stuff, it's like a non-stick pan and it just falls out of our awareness.
Katrina, so sorry to interrupt. We are seeing your slide masters instead of your slideshow.
Let's try again.
Yeah.
Let's try again. Thank you. Let's see. Okay, we will share. Okay, how's that?
Maybe you want to change, click the slideshow. Yes, yeah.
Great. So what we have is 3 emotional regulation systems. So this is from Paul Gilbert. So we have this fight or flight freeze kind of thing, which puts us into the threat zone. We have achieving and drive. So this is to help us to motivate us to seek out resources. And then we have the contentment and soothing system, which sometimes is called rest and digest. But what happens when we have chronic pain is that our threat system gets really activated. And then maybe we go back and forth between achieving, which is like where we're distracting ourselves from the pain, we're avoiding it. Maybe we're like just constantly trying to get rid of the pain and fix it. And our soothing system becomes really small. And another interesting thing is that there was this study where they showed people images. So some of the images were scary, some of them were neutral. And then they put the hot probe again on the back of their leg. And what they found is that people felt more pain when they were looking at the scary pictures. Sometimes when they were looking at a scary picture and there was no heat applied, they also felt pain. So we really don't want to spend so much time in the threat zone because it can make our pain worse. So what we want to do is spend more time in the green zone. And so these are some different ways that we can do this. So we were talking before, right? Maybe mindfulness is like hard for some people to focus on the breath. So there's other ways that we could do this. So maybe just like reminding ourselves that we're safe. This is a really good one for me with anxiety. I'm like, hold on, like right now I am safe. My anxiety is usually future-based, right? So feeling safe, being kind to ourselves. Maybe connecting with others. If we have people that we feel comfortable with, that can support us, or spending time outdoors. And if you're not physically able to go outside, we can also do things like look out the window, or even just imagining being in nature. And all of those things can help to shift over our nervous system. And so with all of this, I'm hoping that you can take some of these things and improve your life or the lives of others if we can share this information with them, so that we can be like Chris, who said that he is flourishing. So despite whatever kind of thing we're in, that we can flourish. So Chris had to give up his dream of being a medical doctor. And he's changed his career. He's now a ukulele teacher. He loves music. He says he has a profession that brings him joy and connections with others. He's also able to work with his body. He doesn't have to sit for so long. He can choose a schedule where, you know, he's able to manage his anxiety and also to manage his body as well. And having his unwanted friend rather than pain as his enemy. So I just end with this quote that I love so much by Helen Keller, that although the world is full of suffering, it's also full of the overcoming of it. And so that's really what mindfulness-based pain management is about, is helping us to overcome all those difficult things. So we teach skills to work with the thoughts, to work with the emotions that might become part of our secondary suffering, and then to really open ourselves up so that we can enjoy so many of the good things in life that are always there, but they tend to get drowned out by the negativity bias. And it's harder to feel them when we're stuck into the threat zone. So Karen, that was all I had. It was just a little bit more. So we have lots of time for questions.
Okay. So let me go through some of the questions. So I think because when we talk about chronic pain, right? So there will be a lot of thoughts, because when we talk about secondary suffering, the secondary thoughts, right? So there's a lot of catastrophizing, and then there's a lot of magnifying all these things, because we, especially those who are new to mindfulness, might be wondering, like, what if this is all I focus on during the mindfulness practice? Yeah, what if that is the only thing I focus on? Like, instead of making myself feel better, I feel worse. So that is actually a question from the participants. Yeah.
That's a really good question. Sometimes people also say, like, mindfulness isn't working for me. I'm just thinking more. And my answer is, well, maybe you're just more aware of the thoughts. Because, I mean, we think almost all of the time, right? Even when we're sleeping, we're dreaming, which is still mental activity going on. And so it's a practice. So to be kind to yourself, to know that everybody thinks when they do mindfulness practice. And what we want to do is notice that and then bring the attention back. I really like to think of mindfulness as like a mental workout. So if I wanted to make this muscle strong, I could go to the gym and I could lift weights, right? And every time I lift that weight, this muscle is getting stronger. And so we have a tendency for our mind to wander. Remember at the beginning, we talked about it being our superpower, but sometimes it can be our curse. So what we need to do is strengthen it to make it our superpower. So we give ourselves something to focus on. So maybe you were trying to focus on the breath in this last practice, and your mind is like, what's for lunch? And you're like, okay, come back here, we're breathing. And then your mind's like, oh, yesterday, that was really crazy. You're like, okay, come back here. So every time we notice that the mind is wandering away, we just bring it back. And that is strengthening that muscle or that ability of our brain to be able to focus and pay attention. So it's totally normal, and it's a practice.
Yeah, I think in a sense, right, we can't really remove the fear that, you know, like I'm in pain, you know, this is, and then all the catastrophe, and then all the magnifying of everything going on, because it's very real for the person. So the important part here is to have self-compassion, to really empathize with ourselves, and maybe a little bit reframing of the whole situation. But that one is, of course, we might need to take baby steps, isn't it?
Yeah, baby steps is always good.
Baby steps is always correct, isn't it? Okay, so we have a question that is very similar to our prior sessions, which is actually, they say that if I focus too much on the pain area, it will cause me to feel more pain. I find that focus on breathing relax the body better. If pain is too intense, is long deep breath better? So these are more like technical questions here.
Yeah. I think that there's no better or worse, that it's really about meeting yourself where you are and experimenting. So maybe sometimes that's the best thing for you to do is to just do the long, deep breathing. That's great. That can help you get into the green zone, right? Maybe you're feeling so much pain that you're in the threat zone. So doing those nice deep breaths can help you to get in there. Maybe times when the pain isn't so much, then you're able to feel it a little bit more. But there's no right or wrong. So you can experiment with this and explore and see what works. But it sounds like you have a great idea of using the breath.
I think it's back to the, adjust your own recipe.
I like that.
It's very much adjust your own recipe, right? Okay, so that's a very because when we know that someone is suffering from chronic pain, it can cause a long series of domino effects on their mental health, on their relationships, on their financials, and we also see people who experience maybe a series of a period where they feel depressed. Yeah. So is there any contraindications that to apply mindfulness if the person is with depression, especially if they're diagnosed with depression?
So then I would suggest just that they work with a therapist. There is, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy is very good for depression. And I'm not sure if they include pain components in there as well, but I'm sure that there are therapists that bring in these different modalities and put them together. But mindfulness can definitely help with depression. Yeah.
Just like don't simply buy medication. The thing is good that you can get your therapist to work with you on whether mindfulness is a good way to solve your issues, right? Yeah. So now, because another question here is, do you know whether Malaysia is adapting the mindfulness-based program for patients, or any of the countries using mindfulness-based pain management?
So the program that I studied with, they work with the National Health Service in the UK. And I know that there are programs that people can join that will be covered by their insurance, which is so wonderful. Not sure how much it's being used in Malaysia. I know therapists that use mindfulness to help people with stress, anxiety, depression, and chronic pain. And sometimes there are programs that are run like 8-week programs, and they can also be done online. So maybe some of us can join those as well to be able to explore this stuff. Because Karen said, it's like create your own recipe. Yes, but sometimes if we want to create a certain dish, it's really helpful if we have a chef who is like, if you really want to make a cake, though, you have to do it like this because you're ending up with a pie. So someone that can give us those techniques and those tools to help can also be really great.
Is what we have talked about just now. Find a chef, find a proper teacher. Yes. Because I think I know the NHS has been like, they have this program and everything. So that was more prominent because that's what they've been doing. But in Malaysia, I think we're just still picking up on the whole sense of mindfulness practices. That's why we are so grateful that you're willing to come up and talk to us about mindfulness-based pain management. Because we want our friends and family to flourish through pain, isn't it? Especially with aging society. All right, now speaking of aging society, we still have to talk about our younger generations. So our participants would like to know, could you please add a little more on how to do mindfulness for young people, especially the movement type?
The movement
type, yeah.
Okay. So it depends on how young. For children, I think it's quite fun because they're more playful, so we can play games with them. But I also do that at the university as well. I have not used my tools in 2 years, but I have like bubbles so that we can be aware of breath, right? As you have to find the right way to blow to make the bubbles. You can watch them, you can move around and poke them. Feathers, so we can blow a feather. And again, like getting the breath just right to make the feather go up. I've used things like the shakers, so we can make sound and make music. Playing games, like a sound game where someone makes a sound and then everyone has to repeat it as they move around. Or the sense game where you can just call out like, hey, Karen, what do you hear? Hey, Sally, what do you see? So that we can bring in the senses. There's a lot of fun ways to do mindfulness. Eating is always popular, we all love like a little piece of chocolate. Yeah, dancing or, getting people to stretch can be really good. I do with the students and I'm like, oh my God, the walls are closing in on you. You got to hold the walls open, like hold the walls open. And then the ceiling tries to cave in. So get them to like reach up and hold up the ceiling. Yeah, things like that, just trying to do it in different ways and make it fun for them as long as they're engaging with their body or their senses can be helpful.
Okay, yay. Because when I hear about the bubbles, I myself was like, oh, that's interesting. Because, when we talk about mindfulness, it's very, the image that it conjure up is like, Zen, very Zen, very, very peaceful, you sit down properly and you're quiet and all these things. But, the feathers and the bubbles is an interesting concept there. So it must be quite fun to actually incorporate it in the play with young people.
Well, one of the attitudes of mindfulness is the beginner's mind, like looking at things as if we've never seen them before. And I find that just kind of naturally can bring out the inner child and that playful attitude. Because life is really short if we're so serious. Yeah, it's good for us to bring in humor as well, or play.
Where did it's just different when doing my pain? Okay, so I see one questions that asks that whether the techniques used in is different when we doing mindfulness for pain and depression and anxiety. Is there any differences? Like if I have pain, so this is what I do. If I have anxiety, that's another type.
So the concept of primary and secondary experience is the same, right? If I get stressed about something and I'm like, oh my God, I'm worried about my presentation. And then my mind just like, can spin out. It can do the exact same thing with stress and anxiety or depression. So that concept is similar. Self-compassion is always good. A little bit different in if we are teaching people for stress, we work less on the pacing program. So for mindfulness for pain, we teach people about pacing. Like Chris watching a movie for 2 hours, that was increasing his pain. So he needs to find out a less time that he could do that. Or those dishes were piling up, right? How many dishes can he wash before he increases his pain? So that is a difference for the pain program, but a lot of the concepts are quite similar. The threat zone, we just looked at the 3 circles, right? The threat zone, stress and anxiety throw us right into that. And we also need to spend more time in the green. So slight differences, but a lot of the topics can apply to all different kinds of suffering, mental suffering, emotional suffering, or physical.
Okay. I think in this sense, right, we can understand like the pain, the mindfulness of pain. It's more like carefully like observing what is the right dosage. Mm-hmm. And then we slowly measure it according to our ability, and then we practice it. So the mindfulness part is actually not just about the pain, but it's about having compassion to ourselves, like allow us to split what that we used to do into a smaller bites.
Yeah.
So the whole allowing part, right?
Yeah, and it can be true for stress or anxiety as well. If my stress gets too high, I get insomnia. So how can I like break that up or manage those emotions or the thoughts that are going on in there so that I can control my stress or my anxiety levels?
I think the difficult part is the bridge between, you know, the so-called normal life or past and the present, because we're so used to one, like I used to like to watch like horror movies like in one shot, you know, a marathon horror movies, right? So I can imagine like, you know, moving from sitting one shot to finish a horror movie and to splitting it into multiple bite size. Yeah. And we kind of see it quite common in our elderly population that they insist of, you know, having their normal routines, which is not working for them anymore. Yeah. So is there any advice you can provide to our participants, especially if they are a caretaker? Because we are in a stage where there's a lot of sandwich generation. Like we are between taking care of our elderly and then taking care of our younger generation. So we are the caretaker. So what is the practice that a caretaker can do, you know, just other than just mindfully helping our loved one to handle that chronic pain?
Was it in specific to like helping them change their habits?
I think
in general.
It's in general. So what can we do, like, because they can be quite combative sometimes when they're in pain, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Because they're in that threat zone, right? So they don't feel safe. Maybe that could be something we could do. Try to help them to get out of that threat zone, spend more time in the green zone. Maybe we could help them identify things that make them feel safe or good, content. Yeah, the changing habits is hard, but if we can help them to see the patterns, you know, like, hey, every time you wash the dishes, you had to go lie down in bed for 2 days, you know, then maybe we can help them to change behaviors a little bit. But it is hard because I think a lot of the time it has to be self-motivated for it to really stick or to make the difference. So that's just a tricky one.
Oh, okay. Our time is almost at the end. So I'm really, on behalf of our organization, I'm really proud and to have hosted this session, because it gives a lot of enlightenment over, you know, how do we manage pain through mindfulness? How do we flourish, especially the concept of flourishing? So let me go for a little bit. So yeah, so of course, thank you to our speaker, Ms. Petrina Iger, for letting us know how to support ourselves when facing chronic pain. And I remember Ms. Petrina said that, you know, we can follow you, we can like your page and follow you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I have LinkedIn and Facebook. So more the pain stuff is more on Facebook. LinkedIn is more for my university stuff. So yeah.
Okay, so maybe our technical team can add in your linkings in so that our participants can actually follow you to get to know more on how to effectively handle pain. Okay, let me go that. Okay. All right, so I think we have reached the end of our sharing today. So right. So let me get this. Okay. So let me get this. Okay, so once again, thank you to our speaker, Ms. Petrina Iger, for letting us know how to support ourselves when facing chronic pain. I believe all of us can benefit immediately from the knowledge and the activities you have shared. Thank you once again. So, okay, for our closing, so thank our participants and FB viewers. Thank you for allocating your lunch time to be with us today. So on behalf of our organizer, we would like to invite our audience to have a few words or thoughts under the Facebook live stream of this event. You may click the link from the chat box at the bottom of your Zoom control panel. So not forgetting those watching us live, please join us in the comment section. Your thoughts and view could be an inspiration to us. So, right, so before we end today, let me share a little bit about our upcoming event that, oh, I need some time to open that. So, yeah. Right, so let me open up a little bit. Okay. Right, so our upcoming event is for this week. It's we have a Mandarin talk entitled Post-Pandemic, being myself, Reshaping My Positive Network, Part 1 on 18th of March. And the second one is our English talk on death awareness, the key to peaceful, rewarding life on 20th of March. So do save the date to join us. So lastly, we would like to promote a little bit about our Utah Hospital, which is a non-profit hospital and will be self-sustained. Your value, support, and generous contribution to this hospital project will greatly benefit medical and health science students, the community, and the nation. To support Utah Hospital project, kindly click the link below for donation. Thank you. See you in our next stop. Goodbye, everyone. We wish you have a pleasant week ahead. Thank you. Okay.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina.
Wow, that was fun.